Chapter 1. I was the company's top salesman, but I never clocked in or out, and I rarely showed my face in the office. 2/3 of the employees had never even seen me. Yet, I had single-handedly propelled our sales to number 1 in the industry, leaving everyone else in the dust. Who would have thought that on the day year-end bonuses were handed out, the new sales director would fire me, citing the bad luck of me stepping into the office with my left foot first. When I demanded to know on what grounds, he sneered. On the grounds that I'm the future master of this company, you just got lucky and closed a few big deals, all thanks to the company's client list. Let me tell you, sincere Sterling, whoever the company decides to throw its resources behind becomes the top salesman. I laughed. They only saw me not punching a clock. They never saw the endless days and nights I spent on the road, painstakingly maintaining client relationships. The truth is, in this industry, people trust sincere Sterling, not the company's brand. I immediately called my wife. Since when did you get a new husband behind my back? On the other end of the line, Victoria Bishop's voice was laced with confusion. Sincere? What are you talking about? Before she could finish, Ethan Donovan snatched the phone from my hand. His tone instantly shifted to one of gentle grievance. Victoria, you have to come quick. Sincere is causing a scene at the office. I heard Victoria's voice immediately fill with concern. I'm on my way. Click. The line went dead. A wave of relief washed over me. It seemed my wife was still worried about me. This Ethan Donovan character was probably just trying to stir up trouble between us. I stared at Ethan and said coldly, "Do you have any idea this company belongs to my wife? What right do you have to fire me?" Ethan let out a confident, derisive laugh. "Of course I know this is Victoria's company. In fact, she's the one who hired me as the sales director with a handsome salary." He leaned in closer, his voice low and full of smug pride. "Victoria and I have been childhood sweethearts for 20 years. You're just a little salesman living off her charity. What makes you think you can compete with me?" Up close, I realized Ethan looked familiar. I'd run into him once while meeting a client. He was working as a gigolo in a nightclub, being kept by a rich old woman, spinelessly nestling in her arms as he poured her drinks. How could Victoria possibly fall for a man like that? The commotion had soon drawn the attention of the entire office. Employees gathered around, pointing and whispering. "Who is that? Daring to challenge Director Donovan? I don't know him. Does he work here? I've never seen him before. I think that's the legendary top salesman, Sincere Sterling, the elusive one." "Oh, it's him. What's he so arrogant about?" "He's just riding Ms. Bishop's coattails. Haven't you heard? Director Donovan and Ms. Bishop have been inseparable lately. They're incredibly close. Totally, I saw Director Donovan feeding Ms. Bishop cake the other day." "Exactly. I'd say Director Donovan is our future meal ticket. This Sincere guy is a nobody." Every word was like a needle pricking my ears. The triumphant look on Ethan's face grew more intense. He raised his voice, as if making a deliberate announcement for everyone to hear. "Sincere, Victoria has a kind heart, so she let you have a meal ticket. Did you really start thinking you were somebody? Gotten addicted to being a freeloader, have you? Refusing to leave? I'm telling you, you're getting out of here today." My heart sank inch by inch, but my face remained impassive. I stated word for word, "Everyone here knows full well the profits I've generated for this company over the years. I am one of the company's founders and a major shareholder. Unless I choose to leave myself, no one has the right to order me around." My words were firm and resonant. The surrounding chatter died down. The color drained from Ethan's face for a moment, but just then, a newly hired intern suddenly stepped forward. She pointed a finger at my nose and burst out laughing. "Ah, you're quite the storyteller, a founder, a major shareholder. How can you be so shameless? Didn't you just get lucky closing a few big deals by selling your body and drinking with those rich old women? Besides, he has most of the company's client data. Of course he's the top salesman." Many employees started to chime in. "Exactly, if you gave that data to us, we could do it too." A truly capable person is someone like Director Donovan, who is willing to lead us all to success. Her speech was full of righteous passion. I trembled with anger, glaring coldly at the intern. Every single one of those clients was earned by me, one trip at a time, one drink at a time. I scanned everyone present, my gaze finally landing on the intern and Ethan Donovan. Only incompetent people resort to slandering the success of others. My words made the intern's face turn pale. She looked like she wanted to argue. But just then, the sharp, rapid click of high heels echoed through the office. I looked toward the sound and saw my wife, Victoria Bishop, striding in like a storm. I started to walk toward her. To my shock, Ethan beat me to it, smoothly pulling her into a half embrace, their posture incredibly intimate. Seeing this, I froze in my tracks. Victoria stormed toward me, and a crisp, loud slap landed squarely on my face. "Sincere, what is your problem?" Victoria pointed at my nose and shrieked, "Why are you bullying Ethan? Who do you think you are?" I clutched my cheek, looking at her in disbelief. In that moment, even a fool like me would understand. Everything the employees had said, it was all true. Victoria had been cheating on me for a long time. A white-hot rage shot up from the pit of my stomach to the top of my head. I stared at her, my voice trembling. "Victoria, we are husband and wife. Are you sure you want to burn this bridge for him? I worked my fingers to the bone to build this company for you. Even if you don't credit my achievements, you can't deny my hard work. Is this how you repay me?" Before Victoria could speak, Ethan, nestled in her arms, spoke first. He looked up at me with the air of a victor. "Sincere, you just don't understand women. What a woman needs most is companionship, warmth. Did you know that?" I looked at his smug face and felt sick to my stomach. After hearing Ethan's words, Victoria gazed at him with adoring eyes. But when she turned back to me, her expression was instantly filled with disgust. "Sincere, did you hear that? Ethan is 100 times better than you. He's gentle, considerate, and he can help me manage the company and make money. He's 100 times better than a useless bum like you who's never home and just messes around outside." Useless? I laughed, overcome with rage. Back then, she was running this tiny startup with just the two of us, on the verge of bankruptcy. I threw myself into it, handling sales, negotiating with clients, smiling through endless dinners and drinks. I ran myself ragged, drank until my stomach was ruined. The company's revenue grew exponentially, transforming from a failing workshop into a well-known player in the industry. And her, Victoria Bishop, she was the one who tearfully pursued me, swearing she would marry no one else. Moved by her pleas, I turned down offers from top-tier firms and willingly stayed at her small company. While I was out day and night building a comfortable life for her, she was getting together with her dear childhood friend. All my sacrifices, in her eyes, were now just things she was entitled to. My not being home even became her excuse for cheating. I looked at the disgusting pair before me, and my heart turned to ice. In front of everyone, I questioned Victoria, "Have you forgotten that I single-handedly brought in almost every client this company has? Aren't you afraid that if I leave, the company will go under?" The moment I finished speaking, not just Victoria and Ethan, but even my colleagues from the sales department burst into laughter. They had long resented me, the guy who never came to the office but held the top salesman spot. "Ha ha ha, who does he think he is? The company will stop running without you? You think too highly of yourself. Exactly. Miss Bishop has Director Donovan now. Who needs you?" Victoria joined in with a cold laugh, her eyes dripping with sarcasm. "Sincere, get it straight. You're just a salesman, and soon you won't even be that. I have Ethan now. He's much better than you. You're nothing but a discarded pawn I no longer want." I was utterly disillusioned. "Fine, so be it." I looked at her and said calmly, "In that case, let's get a divorce. I'll grant you your wish and make way for you and this other man." Ethan looked as if he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. He contemptuously pulled a marriage certificate from his briefcase and threw it in my face. "Take a good look and see who the other man really is." I picked up the booklet from the floor. I opened it and saw, to my horror, their marriage certificate. My mind went completely blank. Victoria said triumphantly. That's right. The marriage certificate I had with you was a fake. It was just a way to keep you tied down, to make you willingly work like a dog for me and earn more money. Now that the company is on the right track and I have Ethan to help me, you're useless. There was a hint of relief in her voice. None of my assets have anything to do with you. You can get lost now. I wanted to tear this pair of degenerates to shreds. Suppressing my fury, I looked at Victoria and asked, one word at a time, if the marriage was fake, the shares are real, right? I'm also a shareholder. If you want me to leave, then liquidate my shares and pay me out. Considering my stake, my departure would take a huge chunk out of Victoria's company. But Victoria just raised an eyebrow and sneered. Shares? Who said you have any shares? Sincere, are you delusional? Those documents were just things I tricked you into signing to mess with you. But considering you've been my workhorse for so many years, I'll show some pity. She took a set of keys from her purse and tossed them on the floor. That old rundown shoebox apartment we bought when we got married, take it as your severance. Now get out. I nodded. Good. Very good. I turned to leave this disgusting place. Wait, Victoria suddenly stopped me. That 9-figure deal you're currently negotiating, hand it over to Ethan, and leave all your client files behind. Otherwise, I'll sue you for stealing company trade secrets and have you thrown in jail. I had no desire to entangle myself with them any further. I took a USB drive from my briefcase and tossed it over my shoulder without looking back. Ethan and the sales staff erupted in a thunderous cheer. It was as if my departure would cause a shower of riches to rain down upon them. They had no idea that without me personally there, the clients wouldn't sign anything. I looked at the cheering crowd, then took one last look at Victoria. Victoria Bishop, I wish your company a speedy bankruptcy. Then I turned to Ethan. An incompetent, ignorant fool like you is fit to be a sales director? Just wait. You're going to run this company into the ground. Ethan immediately put on a magnanimous and compassionate expression. He put his arm around Victoria's shoulder and said softly, Victoria, don't be angry. He's just been fired and is lashing out. It's all nonsense. Victoria, however, looked at me with an air of arrogance and spat out a threat. Sincere, you're just jealous. Ethan is 100 times more capable than you. Everyone just wait and see how a real top salesman is made. I smiled. Fine. I was very interested to see how this incompetent empty suit she'd hired at great expense would become the future top salesman. Victoria handed over complete control of the company's sales operations to Ethan. As for herself, she went back to her old routine, checking employee attendance logs and then spending her days flaunting her relationship on social media. She had probably long forgotten that the only reason she could move from a 300-square-foot rundown dump to her current 2,000-square-foot luxury condo, the only reason she could spend exorbitant amounts of money on useless luxury goods just to display in her home, was all thanks to me, Sincere Sterling. Built one drink, one contract, one deal at a time. I gave myself a week off. That week my phone nearly exploded. It was a constant barrage of calls from headhunters and CEOs of major corporations. They all made incredibly tempting offers, desperate for me to join them. Among them was Victoria's biggest rival and the true leader in the industry, Shenghua Group. The president of Shenghua Group, Helena Marshall, called me personally 3 times. The terms she offered were impossible to refuse. Sincere, come to Shenghua. I'll give you 50% of the group's shares. You won't be my employee. You'll be my partner. You and I will run the whole of Shenghua. I accepted Helena's invitation, but I never expected that on my first day at Shenghua, Victoria would show up at the front door with Ethan spoiling for a fight. Helena was in the lobby with all the company executives, lined up to give me a grand welcome ceremony. Before she could even start her welcome speech, Victoria's shrill yelling echoed into the building. Sincere Sterling, you ungrateful backstabber, haven't you had enough of being a freeloader? You deliberately jumped ship to my rival just to humiliate me and steal my business, didn't you? She pointed her finger at my nose, screaming like a shrew. Ethan stood beside her, adding his own snide remarks. Sincere, you should know better than to burn your bridges. For a grown man to be so ruthless, you have no shame. I smiled calmly. Ms. Bishop, Director Donovan, if I recall correctly, you said that whoever the company throws its resources behind becomes the top salesman. I'm just a useless piece of trash, a discarded pawn you kicked out. Now that I'm gone, what threat could I possibly pose to you? So why are you two so nervous? My words made Victoria and Ethan's faces turn incredibly ugly. Just then, Helena Marshall stepped forward. She was tall, with a commanding presence. A single glance from her was enough to diminish Victoria's bluster by a third. Ms. Bishop, I am currently holding a welcome ceremony for Shenghua Group's new CEO president. Are you here to offer your congratulations? If you're here to cause a scene, then I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. Helena smiled faintly and gestured toward a line of tall, burly security guards in black suits by the entrance. The security team I've hired is also top tier. After all, unlike some people, I don't have such poor judgment that I'd mistake a fake for a pearl. She paused, then added, Oh, and by the way, we don't have so many rigid rules at Shenghua Group. Sales staff are not required to punch a clock. As long as they generate profit for the company, I don't care where they spend their time. Every one of Helena's words was like a slap across Victoria's face. Victoria's face turned the color of liver. She was trembling with rage but didn't dare to actually cause a scene on Shenghua's turf. In the end, all she could do was throw out one last threat. CEO president? Him? He's just a salesman. Helena, don't get too cocky. My company will thrive without him. We're about to sign a 9-figure deal. You just wait and be jealous with that. She seemed to feel she'd regained a shred of dignity. She grabbed Ethan and stormed away in a fluster. Watching their retreating backs, I turned to Helena and said, That 9-figure deal? They won't be able to sign it. Don't worry. Helena looked at me, not asking for any explanation. She simply smiled and said, I trust you. After joining Shenghua, it only took me 1 week to sign 3 separate deals, each worth tens of millions in profit. Many of my old clients, upon hearing I had moved to Shenghua, contacted me on their own initiative. They were willing to pay penalties to terminate their contracts with Victoria's company and sign with me instead. Dinners, meetings, one after another. Shenghua Group's performance skyrocketed at a terrifying rate. Meanwhile, things were reportedly not going well for Victoria. After Ethan took over the sales department, he hadn't closed a single deal. He had impatiently called every contact on the client list I'd left behind, managing to offend more than half of them. They either hung up on him immediately or asked one simple question, Where's Sincere? I heard that after facing constant rejection, he started taking his frustrations out on the employees. Ethan began to obsessively monitor attendance and performance metrics. 1 minute late meant a 500 deduction. If you failed to meet the impossible sales targets he set, not only did you lose your base salary, but you ended up owing the company money. For a time, the office was filled with panic and resentment. In just 2 weeks, 2/3 of the sales department quit. Even Shenghua Group received several resumes from employees at Victoria's company. Victoria finally seemed to realize that money was only flowing out of the company account, not in, and the well was about to run dry. She started to panic. One day, an old client of mine, Mr. Windsor, invited me to dinner. Mr. Windsor was the biggest partner in our industry, with the highest demand. Previously, a single order from him was enough to support more than half of Victoria's company. When he heard I had moved to Shenghua, he didn't hesitate for a second. He immediately terminated all his partnerships with Victoria's company. Then he called me personally to arrange this dinner, wanting to sign a new, even larger contract with me. And this contract was the very same 9-figure deal Victoria had been boasting about in front of Shenghua's office. Mr. Windsor and I were in a private room, having a great conversation. After a few drinks, the contract details were more or less finalized. Just then, the door to the room was violently thrown open. Victoria and Ethan burst in, their faces contorted with rage. It was clear they had been having a rough time lately. Victoria had dark circles under her eyes, her face devoid of its former radiance. Ethan also looked haggard, his hair a mess. Victoria rushed at me like a madwoman. "Sincere, you despicable creep, you stole my deal." She hurled abuse at me, her words foul and unbearable. Ethan, on the other hand, immediately plastered on a fawning smile, sidled up to Mr. Windsor, and personally poured him a drink. "Mr. Windsor, did we do something to displease you? You're a magnanimous man. Please give us another chance. We promise to show you our utmost sincerity then." He pointed at me and began to slander me. "Mr. Windsor, don't let him fool you. He's just a social climbing freeloader who's an expert at cutting corners. A man like him, who steals business from others and has no business ethics, is not to be trusted." But who was Mr. Windsor? He was a veteran shark of the business world, who'd been navigating these waters for decades. He didn't give Ethan the time of day. He set down his glass and looked at them coldly. "First, I never signed a formal contract with your company, so there's no such thing as Sincere stealing a deal. Second, who I choose to partner with is my decision, and it's not for you to dictate. Third, I was the one who actively sought Sincere out. In this industry, I do business with him, the man. Wherever he is, that's where my business is. I have complete confidence in him." Mr. Windsor's words were like daggers to the heart. The color drained from Victoria and Ethan's faces, leaving them deathly pale. But they still wouldn't give up. Victoria forced a smile that was uglier than a grimace and said to Mr. Windsor, "Mr. Windsor, we were in the wrong this time. We apologize. Look, even if business doesn't work out, goodwill remains. We've worked together for so many years. Please, just give us one more chance. Let us treat you to a meal, all right?" They were trying to leverage their past relationship to get another shot. After all, at the dinner table, over drinks, when inhibitions are lowered, many things can change. Mr. Windsor frowned. I discreetly passed him a glass of detoxifying tea, signaling that the decision was his. Perhaps out of consideration for their many years of past partnership, Mr. Windsor finally relented. "Fine. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, same place." Victoria and Ethan's eyes lit up, and they thanked him profusely. Annoyed by their chatter, Mr. Windsor waved his hand. "All right, that's enough. Go on, get out. Don't disturb my meeting with President Sterling." Only then did Victoria seem to notice that I had been sitting there the whole time, silent, watching them like a play. She felt an overwhelming sense of humiliation and shame, glaring at me with a look of pure hatred. Before I could even process the meaning behind her stare, Ethan pulled her away, and they scurried out of the room. After seeing Mr. Windsor off, I was a bit drunk and my head was spinning. I went back to that so-called marital home. Unexpectedly, as I reached the door, I saw an uninvited guest. Victoria was standing there, her makeup exquisitely done. When she saw me, her eyes lit up and she immediately rushed over. She had a look of grievance on her face, her eyes welling with tears, on the verge of crying. "Sincere, don't you love me anymore? Why didn't you give me any face at the dinner today? Didn't you used to dote on me the most?" Looking at her feigned act, I just felt a wave of nausea. I sneered and retorted, "Dote on you? When you slapped me in front of the entire company for your precious brother, did you think about where I was supposed to put my face? When you tricked me with a fake marriage certificate and played me for a fool, did you ever think about whether I was hurting?" Seeing that reason wasn't on her side, Victoria switched tactics. Her body went limp as she tried to fall into my arms. This was her old trick. Whenever she acted weak and coquettish, I would soften. But now, I just felt disgusted. I sidestepped, and she missed, grabbing the railing to keep from falling. I looked at her, my eyes icy cold. "Miss Bishop, please have some self-respect. I don't take back the trash, thank you." My words stung Victoria, and her face went white. But she quickly recovered with a triumphant smile. She pointed at the door behind me and said, "Sincere, stop pretending. If you really had no feelings for me, why would you still keep our marital home? You're still thinking of me. You still love me, don't you?" Only then did I remember. I had been so busy with work that I had completely forgotten about asking the real estate agent to sell the apartment. I looked at her self-important face and told her the truth. "You're overthinking it. I put this place on the market a while ago. I just came back today to pack my things for the handover tomorrow." The smile on Victoria's face instantly froze. She looked at me in utter disbelief. You're selling our home? Sincere, you cold-hearted man. You used to say you'd love me and cherish me forever. It was all lies. I was once again shocked by her shamelessness and double standards. I couldn't be bothered to waste another word on her. Engaging with someone like her would only lower my IQ. I walked right past her and left, heading to the new Riverview luxury condo I had purchased. The next evening, I happened to have a dinner meeting with a client at the same restaurant where Mr. Windsor was meeting Victoria and her crew. I ran into them again, and this time there was one more person. The intern who had once stood in the office and accused me of selling my body. Just as I arrived at the restaurant entrance, Mr. Windsor's car pulled up. I was about to go over and greet him, but the intern, like a dog guarding its food, darted forward and shoved me aside. "Get away from us, you creep," she hissed, glaring at me. Mr. Windsor's brows furrowed in displeasure. I gave him a helpless smile, signaling that it was fine. The intern didn't notice Mr. Windsor's expression. Instead, she fawningly led him to a table in the main dining hall. I inwardly laughed. Conducting business, and they didn't even book a private room? Just a table in the lobby? What kind of move was that? A moment later, a tardy Victoria and Ethan appeared. They walked straight to Mr. Windsor's table and sat down. Victoria imperiously told the intern, "Lily, go order the food. We need to have a good talk with Mr. Windsor." I saw Mr. Windsor's hand, which had been reaching for the menu, pause mid-air before he silently lowered it. My client hadn't arrived yet, so I wasn't in a rush to go to my private room. I found a discreet spot on the second-floor corridor and settled in to watch the show. Downstairs, as soon as Victoria and Ethan sat down, they eagerly started pouring wine for Mr. Windsor. They didn't even wait for the food to arrive before getting straight to the point. Victoria began boasting about their company's recent brand upgrades. Ethan, beside her, recited their product advantages like he was reading from a script, but it was obvious that everything they said was just empty, unappealing jargon from a brochure. Mr. Windsor looked extremely impatient, shifting restlessly in his chair. Victoria didn't notice and kept pushing wine on him. "Mr. Windsor, you have to try this wine. It's a private vintage from abroad. I brought it especially for you." Mr. Windsor finally snapped. He slammed his glass down on the table with a loud thud. "Ms. Bishop, I haven't had a single bite of food, and you're already trying to get me drunk enough to send me to the hospital?" His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for the surrounding tables to hear. Ethan and Victoria were visibly stunned. They finally realized they had been far too aggressive. The two of them began apologizing profusely. "We're so sorry, Mr. Windsor. We were too eager. Please don't be angry, please." Just then, the intern, Lily, returned from ordering. She had a look on her face that said, "You can count on me," and gave Victoria and Ethan a firm nod. Victoria and Ethan breathed a collective sigh of relief. But when the waiter began bringing out the dishes one by one, not just Mr. Windsor, but Victoria and Ethan as well, were petrified. 3 cold dishes, cucumber salad, wood ear mushroom salad, and vermicelli noodle salad. 1 hot dish, scrambled eggs with tomato, and 1 meat dish, fried chicken with ketchup. The intern, meanwhile, was enthusiastically beckoning Mr. Windsor. "Mr. Windsor, please eat, these are all my favorite dishes. I'm telling you, the scrambled eggs with tomato at this place are to die for." Mr. Windsor's face had turned so dark it looked like ink might drip from it. His good manners were the only thing stopping him from flipping the table and storming out. He looked at Victoria and said with a humorless smile, "Miss Bishop, your employees certainly have a sense of humor." Incredibly, Victoria didn't pick up on the sarcasm. She actually thought he was praising her company's atmosphere. She immediately replied with an obsequious smile, Yes, Mr. Windsor. We often eat simple, home-style meals together. We're all like a family. The atmosphere is very relaxed. The intern was even more clueless. She started digging in herself, her mouth full as she blurted out, "Mr. Windsor, you have no idea. Our company can barely afford to pay base salaries right now. Ms. Bishop said we had to cut costs, so I carefully selected these dishes. But I read online that big shots like you are tired of fancy food and prefer kids' food. If you like the food, maybe you could do us a huge favor and give us another chance with that." She picked up a piece of fried chicken, gave Mr. Windsor a playful wink, and whined, "Mr. W., please." Ethan wasn't idle either. He was busy serving food to Mr. Windsor. The plate of vermicelli salad was slippery and difficult to handle. To show his sincerity, he actually stood up, stretched his arm across the table, and shakily placed a clump of noodles into Mr. Windsor's bowl. The scene was as comical as it was cringeworthy. Up on the second floor, I was about to burst out laughing. Mr. Windsor finally exploded. He shot up from his chair. Enough he looked at the plate of tomato eggs and fried chicken, then at the three oddballs in front of him. "Miss Bishop, I was originally willing to give you another chance. But it seems to me now that without Sincere Sterling, your company has some fatal flaws and doesn't seem to value this opportunity very much. Since that's the case, let's just forget it. You don't need to contact me again." With that, Mr. Windsor turned and walked away without a backward glance. He left Victoria, Ethan, and the intern staring at each other, completely dumbfounded. Suddenly, Victoria stood up and, one by one, started flipping the plates of food onto the intern's face, screaming curses at her.
"What kind of moron are you? Ordering this for a client dinner? Do you have any idea you've ruined my company?"
The intern, not to be outdone, flipped the whole table over and started mocking Victoria and Ethan. "And you think you're any better? You kicked Sincere out when he was here and replaced him with this incompetent fool of a director, telling us to witness the birth of a real top salesman. And what's the result? I work my ass off for a month, don't earn a single penny, and end up owing the company money. I'm going to the labor board to report you." After her tirade, the intern even grabbed the leftover fried chicken and left. The show was over. My client had arrived. I went downstairs to greet him, and just as I was about to lead him to our private room, Victoria called out to me. Her eyes were red and filled with tears. She glared at me, her voice trembling with rage. "Sincere, you must be feeling pretty smug right now, aren't you?" I looked at her, not even bothering to waste an expression on her, turned around and led my client into our room. After that dinner, Victoria's company completely collapsed. Losing Mr. Windsor, their biggest client, caused an immediate break in their cash flow. They couldn't pay their employees, who left in droves. Suppliers showed up demanding payment, blocking the company's entrance. In just one short month, the company I had poured my heart and soul into declared bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Shenghua Group, under Helena and me, was unstoppable. We successfully became one of the world's top 100 enterprises, with a bright future ahead. I was filled with motivation every day, enjoying the immense satisfaction of my career success. When I drove past Victoria's now defunct company, the sign had been taken down, making the place look particularly desolate. The roll-up door was shut tight, with only a few debt collectors still stubbornly waiting outside. I never expected that Victoria, with her sharp eyes, would come rushing out of a small convenience store across the street. She threw herself in front of my car like a madwoman. She was so thin she was almost unrecognizable, her face sallow, her eyes filled with desperation and insanity. She banged on my car window, crying and screaming at me. "Sincere, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. The company can't survive. Without you, please come back. Please, if you come back, I can forget everything that happened." Listening to her utterly shameless words, I found it laughable. I rolled down the window and pushed her away. "Miss Bishop, you're mistaken. I'm just a humble salesman. I couldn't possibly accept such a grand honor. You should stop putting me on a pedestal." Seeing that I was unmoved, she threw out a new offer. "Sincere, if you come back, we'll get married. I'll give you the company. No, I'll give you everything." All the shares will be yours." I laughed. I looked at her as if she were a clown performing a clumsy act. "Victoria, I came by today because I wanted to see what a wreck you stupid fool, had made of the company I personally built. It seems the result is even more spectacular than I imagined. I used to love you, so I was willing to give you everything. But now, I don't love you anymore. In fact, I find a cheating, foolish, and clueless woman like you utterly repulsive. Do you really think there's a single thing about you now that I would find even remotely appealing?" My words completely shattered her final fantasy. Victoria stood as if struck by lightning, trembling all over before collapsing to the ground. She finally understood that I was truly never coming back. Later, I heard some news about her. That Ethan Donovan character ran off with the last of her money after the company went bankrupt. When Victoria went to find him, she discovered he wasn't some elite professional back from overseas. He had returned to his old trade, working as a gigolo in a nightclub. What shattered her completely was discovering she was pregnant, and during a prenatal checkup, she was also diagnosed with an incurable STD. The next time I saw her, it was on a local news report about her end. The report said a woman with the surname Bishop had stormed into a high-end club and gotten into a violent altercation with a male employee. They had attacked each other, screaming vicious curses, each blaming the other for all their misfortunes. In the end, Victoria Bishop died at the scene from dozens of stab wounds, and Ethan Donovan was sentenced to life in prison for intentional homicide. I turned off the morning news on the television. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, filling the entire living room. Helena Marshall walked out of the kitchen with an elegant breakfast and handed it to me. "What are you watching so intently?" I took the sandwich she had made and took a bite. "Nothing. Just watching a comedy." Outside the window, a brand new day was dawning. Chapter 1. At the company's year-end bonus distribution, my wife, Victoria Ashton, directly awarded her secretary, Ethan Vance, a grand villa worth millions of dollars. A brilliant smile spread across Ethan's face as he planted a kiss on Victoria's cheek. "Thank you for the reward, Miss Ashton. I'll strive to repay you even better in the future." Watching their intimate display, I quietly left the hall. But Victoria wasn't pleased with my reaction and rushed over to block my path. "Sincere Mason, what on earth is your problem? I've told you 1,000 times, there's nothing between Ethan and me. This is purely based on his performance." Hearing the word performance left a bitter taste in my mouth. That success was clearly my achievement, yet no one seemed willing to believe me. This broken marriage, I didn't want it anymore. Just as I left the bonus ceremony hall, Ethan's eager voice followed. "Ms. Ashton, is Mr. Mason upset? Perhaps I shouldn't accept this villa to avoid causing friction between you two." As he spoke, Ethan handed back the villa keys. Victoria's expression darkened. "Kinda what's given is given. Why should you care if he's upset or not? And he does nothing at home all day. And now he thinks he can dictate what I do. And I've indulged him too much." Hearing Victoria's impatient tone, bitterness washed over me. This wasn't the first time she had treated me like this. After our startup succeeded, she claimed she didn't want me working too hard, so I shifted my focus primarily to our home life. Precisely because of this, Victoria felt I was no longer contributing to her success and grew increasingly impatient with me. But she seemed to forget. The initial investments her company received were largely thanks to investors who trusted me, connections often tied to my father's reputation. Flush with funding, Victoria became self-satisfied, treating the company as solely her own. I was curious to see how long she could keep this up without my help. Returning home, the house felt cold and empty. I went to the kitchen intending to cook for myself, when my phone buzzed with a notification. Opening it, I saw Victoria had posted on her social media feed, "Undedicated secretary is worth having." The picture showed Ethan wearing only shorts and an apron, looking as if he was making hangover soup for Victoria. Observing the suggestive atmosphere between them, I felt numb. From the first time Ethan provoked me, I knew they would eventually cross that line. but I hadn't expected it to happen so soon. Still, what did their actions matter to me? We were heading for divorce. These things were irrelevant now. I put my phone aside and continued preparing my meal. However, just as I was about to chop vegetables, Victoria suddenly sent me a short video. It showed Ethan spoon-feeding hangover soup to her, but the video was retracted within a minute. Then a message from Ethan arrived. "Mr. Mason, sorry, I forwarded that to the wrong person." I saw right through Ethan's petty games. I simply replied with okay, and said nothing more. Victoria didn't come home that night. I enjoyed the peace and quiet. The next morning, well past the start of the workday, I still hadn't gone to the office. Victoria couldn't stand it anymore. I was woken by relentless ringing. As soon as I answered, before I could utter a word, Victoria's sharp scolding erupted. "Sincere Mason, what stunt are you pulling now?" Chapter 2. Since I had too much to drink at the reception last night, Ethan was just taking care of me. Why make such a big deal out of a small thing and skip work today? Victoria's accusatory voice pounded in my head. Didn't I submit a leave request? What? Didn't you see it? Hearing my voice, Victoria checked her phone and indeed found my request. But someone like her would never admit fault. Sincere, you're a CEO founder of this company. You need to set an example. Sin, if you want leave, come to the office and request it in person. She deliberately emphasized the last part of the sentence. I understood her implication. Since I had already decided on divorce, a trip to the company wouldn't hurt. With that thought, I changed my clothes and headed straight to the office. Upon arriving, I found Ethan waiting for me. His face was flushed, and his eyes held a look of provocation and mockery. Seeing me, Ethan hurried over. "Mr. Mason, Miss Ashton asked me to greet you." Ethan walked beside me, subtly revealing the distinct love bite on his neck. He kept testing my reaction, but as someone already set on divorce, why would I bother with someone so beneath contempt? "Miss Ashton, Mr. Mason is here." Hearing Ethan's voice, Victoria glanced up at me, her dissatisfaction instantly visible. "What are you wearing? Can't you learn from Ethan and put some effort into your appearance?" Victoria's disdainful words filled my ears, but I paid them no mind. I pulled the prepared divorce agreement from my canvas bag and tossed it onto her desk. "Victoria Ashton, let's get a divorce." My words hung in the air. Victoria paused, her face hardening. "Sincere Mason, what did you just say?" Before I could respond, Ethan chimed in with his explanation. "Mr. Mason, please don't misunderstand Miss Ashton and me. And last night, Miss Ashton drank too much and vomited on me. That's why I had to change clothes." Though Ethan feigned explanation, the provocation in his eyes was blatant. I ignored Ethan's voice, fixing my gaze firmly on Victoria. I said, "I want a divorce." The moment the words left my mouth, fire erupted in Victoria's eyes. She slammed her hands on the desk and shot up. "Sincere, there's a limit to your jealous tantrums. On divorce? In your dreams." Victoria snatched the divorce agreement, tore it into pieces, and threw them in my face. "Sincere, even threats have limits. On divorce is going too far." "Sin, Victoria, I'm not threatening you. If you really won't agree to a divorce, then we'll proceed through legal channels." My voice was cold and resolute. Victoria's face turned black. Her brazen eyes scanned me, searching for any sign of weakness. However, she failed. Realizing I was serious about the divorce, Victoria stated her terms. "Sincere, you want a divorce? Fine, but you leave with absolutely nothing." Hearing Victoria's shameless demand, I couldn't help but sneer. "Victoria, are you dreaming? Once you're the one who cheated, and you expect me to leave with nothing? What? Have the past few years gone to your head so much that you can't even tell who's at fault?" Victoria, who had never seen me so assertive, turned livid. I gave her no time to breathe, immediately stating my demands. When the company is split 50-50, and all marital assets belong to me. Chapter 3. Hearing my demands, Victoria's voice rose sharply. Sincere, have you lost your mind over money? Do you know how much the company is worth? Do you know how much our marital assets amount to? Making such outrageous demands, let me tell you clearly, it's absolutely impossible. And since it's impossible, then let's take it to court. I gave Victoria no leeway. Things had already reached this point, might as well escalate further. Victoria looked at my seemingly naive stance and scoffed. Court? Sincere, what grounds do you have? Xinjiang culture has a seasoned legal team. And you're just one person. She paused here, her eyes filled with playful contempt. What makes you think you can win against me? Hearing Victoria's words, I laughed mockingly. She seemed to have forgotten that the company's initial formation relied entirely on me. Not to mention the seasoned legal team she boasted about. They were elite lawyers gifted to me by my father. Why would they turn against me at her command? Victoria, let's part amicably, we're adults. Maintain some dignity. After saying this, I turned to leave. Seeing my indifferent attitude, Victoria rushed forward in a few quick steps and blocked me. Sincere, Mason, did I say you could leave? She grabbed my wrist tightly. I don't know how much force she used, but my wrist instantly bruised. I didn't indulge her either, lifting my leg and kicking her sharply. Victoria, act like a human being. Feeling the sharp pain, Victoria released my hand. Ethan, standing nearby, quickly rushed to support her. Enthusiast, are you all right? And let me check. As he spoke, Ethan's hand moved towards Victoria's waistband. Watching their incredibly suggestive actions, I quickly covered my eyes. What an eyesore. Ugh, witnessing this scene was truly unlucky. I shrugged my shoulders, preparing to leave again, when Ethan blocked me once more. Mr. Mason, you've gone too far, and enthusiast only had your best interests at heart, and you treated her like this. Apologize. Looking at Ethan, I didn't hold back, landing a slap across his face. Ethan, go see a doctor. A brain is a terrible thing to waste. And stay out of my face in the future next time. I won't be so gentle. As I said this, I raised my hand slightly. Ethan reflexively flinched and retreated back to Victoria's side. Seeing the scumbag and the adulteress huddled together, I suddenly felt a pent-up frustration release from my chest. Indeed, in life, one should never back down leaving Qian culture. I suddenly felt a wave of relief, both physically and mentally. The storm clouds would eventually pass. After I left the company, Ethan no longer suppressed his feelings and quickly started massaging Victoria. Miss Ashton, Mr. Mason seemed genuinely angry this time. Maybe I should apologize to him tomorrow? His constant misunderstanding of us isn't good. The more Ethan said this, the angrier Victoria became. She felt as if something important was slipping from her grasp. Apologize for what? Can I really have indulged him too much? In giving him half the company? That's just daydreaming. Victoria's tone was filled with fury. Just then, the sales department manager rushed in, looking extremely anxious. Miss Ashton, terrible news. Mr. Preston and the other investors suddenly pulled their funding chapter. Hearing the sales manager's words, Victoria's face fell. What exactly happened? When we have new projects with Mr. Preston and the others, why would they suddenly withdraw funding? The sales manager looked troubled and could only voice his uncertainty. Mr. Preston and his group are Mr. Mason's contacts. We don't know the specifics. Hearing my name, Victoria's eyes filled with rage, and she spat through gritted teeth. Sincere Mason. Victoria struggled to control her emotions. And send you head back first. I'll figure out what to do about Mr. Preston. After the manager left, Ethan spoke up. Miss Ashton, I have a great idea to bring Mr. Mason back. Ethan whispered something in Victoria's ear. Her expression grew increasingly grave. Though it wasn't a great plan, it was a long shot, perhaps the only option left. Without hesitation, Victoria drove straight home. When she arrived, I had already packed most of my belongings. Seeing my luggage, a flicker of panic crossed her eyes. "Sincere, I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me, okay?" As Victoria moved closer, a cloying perfume scent wafted over. The smell nauseated me, and I pushed her away forcefully. "Sincere, I think I might be pregnant." Victoria frowned for a moment, then looked at me with a face full of joy. "Pregnant?" Hearing such an unexpected word left me utterly bewildered. How could she be pregnant? Although I had always wanted children, Victoria had dismissed the idea, citing the early stages of her career. After that, we had always used protection. So how could this happen now? While I was still puzzled, Victoria grabbed my hand. "Sincere, take me to the hospital for a checkup." Without waiting, Victoria dragged me to the hospital. After a series of tests, I was exhausted, a wave of drowsiness washing over me. As I dozed off nearby, Victoria's excited voice rang out. "Sincere, it's been 2 months we're having a baby." 2 months? How was that possible? Ever since Ethan became Victoria's secretary, she was rarely home. How could she be pregnant? "Sincere, I must throw a party to announce my pregnancy to the world." Seeing Victoria's excitement, a growing sense of unease crept into my heart. She was acting too abnormally. Victoria's execution this time was remarkably swift. Having confirmed the pregnancy just that morning, she immediately organized a banquet that evening, inviting all of Kian Group's partners and investors. Upon hearing Victoria was pregnant, they offered hearty congratulations. Caught up in the atmosphere, I pushed my suspicions to the back of my mind. That night, Victoria returned home drunk. As soon as she collapsed onto the bed, a message from Ethan arrived. "Miss Ashton, the plan succeeded. Mr. Preston and the others have restored their investment. The crisis is averted." No wonder Mr. Preston had been subtly probing me during the banquet today. Now it seemed he was trying to confirm something with me. With this thought, I didn't hesitate and contacted Mr. Preston directly. Mr. Preston told me he invested in Victoria primarily out of respect for my father. He had people inside Kian culture. The sound of my argument with Victoria in the office that day had been overheard. So, upon receiving the news, he had immediately withdrawn his investment. But just as he withdrew it, Victoria announced her pregnancy. Out of consideration for me, Mr. Preston not only reinvested but increased the amount significantly this time. After hanging up, I curled up on the sofa alone, filled with doubt. How could Victoria get pregnant precisely when Mr. Preston pulled his funding? The more I thought about it, the more something felt wrong. There was something fishy about this pregnancy. With this suspicion growing, I went straight to the hospital the next day. Chapter 5. Number 23, Sincere Mason. Hearing the announcement, I took the results sheet and entered the consultation room. "Sincere?" A surprised voice greeted me. "Grace Mercer, upperclassman?" I hadn't expected to run into Grace in the obstetrics and gynecology department. She was an upperclassman from my university club. Back then, she wanted to transfer to medicine. I hadn't realized she'd actually succeeded. "This is OB-GYN. What brings you here?" Grace looked me up and down curiously. We exchanged a few pleasantries before getting to the point. "Upperclassman, could you take a look at this for me?" Hearing my request, Grace focused her attention on the results sheet. "No major issues. The fetus is developing well, but the mother's constitution seems a bit weak, needs extra care. So she's really pregnant?" Grace looked puzzled by my question. Didn't you give me this report? This is your wife, right? Congratulations." Confirmation of Victoria's pregnancy only muddled my thoughts further. "Upperclassman, thank you for today. I'll treat you to dinner another time." I said goodbye to Grace and was about to leave when I saw Victoria. Ethan was with her, both looking pleased. They were also heading to the OB-GYN department. In that instant, everything clicked. Victoria was pregnant, but the child wasn't mine, it was Ethan's. They had done this purely to secure Mr. Preston's continued investment. After all, Mr. Preston was Keon Culture's largest investor. Suppressing my fury, I discreetly took pictures of the two of them together constantly. I wanted to see how Victoria would explain this later. Victoria didn't return until late at night. There was a clear lipstick mark on the collar of her white blouse. Seeing me, her face instantly lit up with a brilliant smile. "Sincere, the company's holding a celebration meeting tomorrow. You absolutely have to come. Without you, the company couldn't have reached this new height." I silently evaded her embrace, giving her a cold look. I knew my chance had arrived. The next day, I arrived at the company early. As soon as I walked in, I saw Ethan standing in the center of a crowd, flamboyantly showing off his suit. It was the custom suit Victoria had originally ordered for me. I had found it too flashy back then and never wore it. Later, it mysteriously disappeared. At the time, Victoria had been extremely dismissive, giving me a credit card and telling me to buy something I liked. Now it was clear. The suit wasn't lost. It was given away seeing me arrive. Ethan walked over quickly, his face split into a wide grin. "Mr. Mason, you're finally here. What do you think of my suit? Not bad, huh?" As he spoke, Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sincere, tell me, how can you possibly compete with me?" Hearing Ethan's words, I chuckled softly. "Just a piece of trash, yet you treat her like a treasure." Instantly, Ethan's expression turned ugly. Just as he was about to confront me, Victoria arrived. Seeing Victoria enter, Ethan smiled and walked up, intimately wrapping an arm around her waist. Victoria didn't push him away, instead linking her arm through his as they stepped onto the raised platform. Keon Culture is about to go public. A more tremendous progress is all thanks to Ethan's hard work. Before Victoria could finish, Ethan's excited voice interjected. "Oh, no. This is all thanks to Miss Ashton. Without her guidance, I wouldn't be where I am today." Ethan gazed fondly at Victoria, a sticky thread of connection stretching between their eyes as they drew closer and closer. Finally, unable to control his emotions, Ethan leaned in and pressed his lips against Victoria's. Victoria froze for a second, then responded enthusiastically. In an instant, the entire office was filled with the sounds of their passionate embrace. Just as they were lost in their kiss, an abrupt voice cut through the air. "Isn't that Ms. Ashton?" Chapter. At this remark, everyone's gaze shifted to the large screen. Displayed were my marriage certificate with Victoria, alongside intimate pictures of Victoria and Ethan. The photos I took at the OB/GYN clinic that day now served their purpose well. Ms. Ashton married Mr. Mason, yet she's cheating with Ethan. Most importantly, they went to the OB/GYN together, which means the baby Miss Ashton is carrying is. Their murmurs trailed off, sympathetic eyes turning towards me. However, the couple on stage was too engrossed to notice the change in atmosphere. One of the veteran employees, who had been with Victoria and me from the early days, couldn't bear it any longer. She threw the celebratory confetti popper in her hand directly at them. Adulterous woman, despicable homewrecker. Her action prompted other employees who disliked Victoria and Ethan to also throw their poppers. Hearing the commotion, Victoria hadn't yet reacted when she felt a sharp pain in her arm. Just as she was about to erupt in anger, a deluge of confetti rained down on her. Ethan, beside her, looked panicked. "Ms. Ashton, the baby, protect the baby." Ethan was desperate to secure his position. Blurting out the baby's existence at this moment perfectly solidified the proof of Victoria's affair. What a helpful assist once the assault of confetti subsided. Ethan shielded Victoria behind him. "Have you all lost your minds? Son, you dare attack me? Do you want to get fired?" The employee who first attacked Victoria, hearing her threat, tore off her employee badge and threw it on the floor. "Fine, I quit. And having a boss like you is shameful." With that, she walked decisively and stood behind me. Following her example, All the former loyal employees who had journeyed with us step by step came to stand behind me as well. Victoria watched them, her eyes blazing with fury. "Oh, see you all. Fine, just fine." She retracted her gaze, fixing it on me, her tone accusatory. "Sincere Mason, are you satisfied now that you've made such a mess?" I didn't answer her question, staring straight at her instead. "Victoria Ashton, the child you're carrying, is it mine?" Hearing my question, a fleeting panic flashed in Victoria's eyes. Of course. When I lie to you about something like this?" Her voice dwindled, lacking conviction even to herself. Although I already knew the answer, confirmation still filled my heart with pain. Just then, Ethan, who had been silent, suddenly darted forward. He knelt directly in front of me. "But Mr. Mason, please don't blame Miss Ashton. She only did it to save the company, wouldn't we? We just made a mistake after drinking too much. If you're really angry, then blame me." Seeing Ethan act so humbly, any lingering guilt Victoria might have felt towards me vanished completely. She helped Ethan up. Why are you apologizing to him? When A's an employee of the company, contributing is what he should do." Hearing Victoria's clueless remark, I truly wondered what I had ever seen in her. I didn't want to waste any more words on her. I threw the divorce agreement straight at her face. "Divorce? Fine. Divorce, you can have the other assets too, but the company must be mine." I knew exactly what Victoria was scheming. Now that Kian Culture was heading for an IPO, its value was different. Trading useless assets for a money-making machine seemed like a win in any calculation. However, if Victoria truly had the capability, perhaps she could hold onto the company. "Fine, I agree to your terms." Chapter. Without hesitation, fearing I might change my mind, Victoria immediately took me to the registry office. After the 30-day mandatory cooling-off period, we would be completely done. But Ethan couldn't seem to wait even 30 days. As soon as Victoria and I separated, she immediately bought Ethan a new villa. As for the one previously awarded to him, those funds counted as marital assets, so it became mine. I liquidated all the assets I received from the divorce settlement and started a new company. The employees who had stood firmly behind me became the core members of the new venture. Under my dedicated management, the company quickly found its footing. Former clients of Kian Culture, learning I had started my own firm, terminated their contracts with Victoria one after another and came to partner with me. Some clients even preferred paying breach of contract penalties, trusting my capabilities more. After all, my track record spoke for itself. Victoria, preoccupied with planning her wedding to Ethan, naturally didn't notice the company's shifting fortunes. As for the remaining staff at Kian Culture, a bunch of incompetent idiots Victoria had hired herself. How would they notice these changes? Victoria and Ethan's wedding was conveniently scheduled for the exact day the divorce cooling-off period ended. She was just waiting to get the divorce certificate from me and immediately marry Ethan. However, what she didn't expect was that instead of me, she was greeted by the police. Victoria had betrayed me. How could I let her off so easily? I directly reported her for bigamy. On her wedding day, Victoria received a pair of silver handcuffs and was arrested on the spot. Ethan stood frozen, his face numb. Later, I heard Ethan apparently trashed the entire wedding venue. The money Victoria had given him? He'd spent it all on luxury goods and couldn't afford the damages. Ultimately, he had to mortgage the new villa. After all, he was now legally Victoria's husband. Whether bailing her out or handling company matters, he was responsible. Getting Victoria released was relatively simple, but Ethan had no desire to do so. He wouldn't give up this rare opportunity to control the company. Ethan installed his own relatives throughout Kian Culture. Instantly, the already crumbling company descended further into chaos and mismanagement. In just half a month, Kian Culture suffered severe financial losses. Desperate, Ethan poured most of the money from the mortgaged villa into the company, but it still showed no signs of recovery. With no other choice, he finally arranged for Victoria's release. "Victoria, I finally get to see you, and to get you out, I had to mortgage our villa." Hearing Ethan's voice, Victoria looked utterly exhausted. "What happened?" "Since it was all sincere, Mason opened a new company specifically to target ours, stealing all our clients. Learning I was behind it, Victoria's expression hardened. Tomorrow, launch an all-out attack on Sincere's new company. I'm just a newcomer. How dare he fight me?" Perhaps seeing Victoria this vicious for the first time, Ethan couldn't stop trembling. If Victoria found out what he had done, his future would be grim. With this thought, Ethan began planning how to grab the money and run. Early the next morning, Victoria stormed into my company with a large group of people. "Sincere Mason, get out here." Well, if it isn't Miss Ashton. Freshly released and already starting brawls? Not afraid of going back in? Other employees chimed in, hearing the commotion. "Yeah, Miss Ashton, remember to obey the law, otherwise the company might not survive." Infuriated by their taunts, Victoria kicked over a nearby decorative plant. The pot shattered, scattering soil everywhere. What is all this commotion? Chapter 8. I hadn't intended to engage with Victoria, but her ruckus was simply too loud. I knew her personality. If I didn't come out today, she was capable of tearing my office apart. "Victoria, what are you doing?" Seeing me appear, Victoria's anger intensified. She rushed towards me in a few quick strides. However, before she could reach me, security guards intercepted her. "Sincere Mason, you bastard, and then I see why you gave up the company so easily. You were waiting for this. Where did you get the nerve to poach my clients?" Seeing Victoria losing control, I felt a wave of relief. Thank goodness I discovered her true nature early on and got out. Spending a lifetime with Victoria would have been suffocating. Before I could respond, one of the loyal former employees who followed me spoke up. "And Ashton, wake up. Without Mr. Mason, how could Keon Culture have ever succeeded? Those clients came because of Mr. Mason, and you're nothing but a thief who stole someone else's accomplishments, yet you strut around feeling superior. I really don't know what you have to feel superior about. You can't even handle being kept properly. It's pathetic." Victoria turned purple with rage, utterly exposed by the blunt words. Deep down, she always knew the truth but refused to admit it. Now, faced with the raw truth presented by an outsider, she couldn't accept it. "Nonsense. Keon Culture is my life's work. What does it have to do with Sincere Mason? Stop trying to fool me." Victoria's voice was laced with hysteria. Seizing a momentary gap, she hastily fled. Seeing Victoria leave, Ethan prepared to slip away quickly but was stopped by me. What do you want?" Ethan looked at me, fear in his eyes. "Ethan, walking down dark paths too often never ends well." Just that one sentence from me caused beads of cold sweat to form on Ethan's forehead, his face filled with panic. He didn't answer my question, instead shakily retreating. Later on, to prove her capabilities, Victoria specifically tried to compete with me for projects. However, she didn't know that Ethan had already ruined the company's reputation. They couldn't land any projects. Seeing Victoria overwhelmed and struggling, I added fuel to the fire. I revealed everything Ethan had done during her time away. How could a scumbag and an adulteress possibly have a happy ending? When Victoria learned that while she was incarcerated, Ethan's first priority wasn't rescuing her but seizing power and indulging himself at the company, she finally understood his true nature. She confined Ethan at home, subjecting him to constant orders, verbal abuse, and physical beatings. "You bastard, if it weren't for you, would the company be like this? Damn you, when he really deserved to die." If Ethan showed the slightest disobedience, he faced only punches and kicks. I heard that during the worst incident, Victoria nearly beat him to death. If a neighbor hadn't discovered him early, Ethan might not have survived. After that day, Ethan seemed to have learned his lesson, becoming completely obedient to Victoria. Her temper flared less often, Victoria's attitude towards Ethan softened slightly. She might have thought life could continue this way, but she didn't realize Ethan had no intention of letting her off the hook. On a bright, sunny day, Ethan drugged Victoria's food and ended her life. He then set her body on fire and fled the scene. Chapter 9. When I received this news, I felt a sudden sense of bleakness. I had wanted Victoria and Ethan to tear each other apart, but I never expected them to go to such extremes. Neither spared the other. But again, what did it have to do with me? You reap what you sow. Their fates were their own making, no one else to blame. Since divorcing Victoria, my luck with romance seemed to improve significantly, especially Grace Mercer, my former upperclassman, who showed meticulous care towards me. We were both adults. I understood her intentions. While I wasn't opposed to starting a new relationship, I didn't want to rush into anything. Grace respected my choice, willing to take things step by step. Knowing my preferences, she found a private kitchen known for its light, delicate cuisine. She offered to pick me up, but I declined. Her hospital and my company were in opposite directions. It wasn't convenient. Following the address Grace gave me, I arrived at the restaurant's parking lot. Just as I got out of the car, I felt like someone was behind me. I turned around, but there was no one there. What was going on? Puzzled, I turned back and started walking forward when I heard a whooshing sound through the air. Simultaneously, Grace's worried voice cried out, "Sincere, watch out." Hearing her, I turned to see a disheveled Ethan Vance, wielding a fruit knife, lunging towards me. Ethan was fast. I had no time to dodge. Grace, summoning unknown strength, dashed to my side and pulled me into her arms. Ethan's knife grazed Grace's arm. Blood instantly flowed, staining her sleeve red. "Grace, are you okay?" My eyes filled with concern. However, Ethan gave me no chance to show care. He brandished the knife again, stabbing towards me once more. "Sincere, it's all your fault, and it's all your fault. If it weren't for you, why would my life end up so miserably? And just die." Grace got hurt because I was caught off guard. Now alert as Ethan charged again, I kicked him squarely in the chest. Ethan, already weakened from days on the run, had little strength left. My kick made him spit blood. He collapsed like a broken doll on the ground, his face etched with despair, muttering endlessly, "Why? Saint-Twing, why did it turn out like this? Why did you have to ruin me?" Before I could answer Ethan, Grace's stern voice cut in. "You ended up like this because of your own choices. You can't blame anyone else. And I've already called the police. Sonny, you can spend the rest of your life repenting in prison." The piercing sound of police sirens arrived. Ethan's future was sealed. After giving our statements to the police, I immediately took Grace to the hospital. Although the wound had received first aid, I was still worried. Grace noticed my concern and joked, "So worried about me, huh? Why don't you marry me then? Thought you okay?" Hearing my response, Grace froze. Then her entire face lit up with joy. "Really? Sincere? Are you serious?" "I'm serious. That brush with death made me realize that sometimes you just need to be impulsive." Besides, Grace was genuinely a wonderful person. I was willing to be brave this time. As if afraid I'd change my mind, upon hearing my agreement to marry, Grace immediately went home to get her official documents. And we registered our marriage the same day. Ever since we got married, she often just looked at me with a silly grin. Wherever I went, she followed. The year after we married, our baby was born. With the baby's arrival, Grace focused more on our family. This allowed me to better develop my career. Yet, the child didn't grow distant from me. Instead, they became even more attached. The rainbow before my eyes grew ever more vibrant.